You ever get the feeling there are unwritten rules to how the world works? Well, today, we're cracking open one of the most talked about and honestly controversial books ever written on the topic, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This book is basically a playbook for the raw, unfiltered mechanics of influence and control.
But what is power, really? And more importantly, how do you go from being just a piece on the board, a pawn in life's giant chess game, to becoming a player, a master of it? That's the huge question we're going to tackle right now.
All right, to really get a grip on this, we're going to look at 4 absolutely critical laws. We'll kick things off with Law 1, dealing with the people above you. Then, Law 5 is all about building your own power base. Law 15, that's when things get intense, it's about conflict. And we'll finish up with Law 48, the ultimate form of power. Think of it as our roadmap from pawn to player. Let's jump in.
Okay, so our journey starts with law number 1. And honestly, this is the bedrock for everything else that comes after. Never outshine the master. And look, this isn't about just being nice or polite. This is about survival.
To really see why this is so crucial, let's go back to the 16th century Japan. There's this guy, Senno Rikyu. He is the tea master, an absolute favorite of the emperor, Hideyoshi. But here's the thing. Rikyu's skill, his taste, his influence, it just got too big. It grew so immense that he actually started to cast a shadow over the emperor. His own brilliance became a threat, and for that, Hideyoshi forced him to commit suicide. Just think about that. A tragic, brutal end for a man who simply forgot the first rule of the game.
So, what does the story really tell us? It's about a deep, often uncomfortable human truth. Even the most powerful people are deeply insecure. Your talent, your success, to them, it can feel like a personal attack. That's why you have to actively manage their ego. You got to make them feel comfortably superior. You have to subtly frame your wins as if they're a result of their brilliant guidance. And you can never, ever forget that their favor is a gift, not a guarantee. It can vanish in a heartbeat.
Okay, let's move on to the next piece of the puzzle. Once you've made sure you're safe by not outshining the master, it's time to build your own base of power. And what is that base? It's your reputation. Law 5 is crystal clear on this. Guard it with your life.
You want to see this in action? Look no further than the master showman himself, P.T. Barnum. He had this competitor, right? A guy who ran a more scientific, kind of highbrow museum. So what did Barnum do? Did he go after the quality of the other guy's exhibits? Nope. He went for something much more vulnerable, his rival's reputation. He put on these ridiculous shows that made fun of the scientific demonstrations, turning his competitor into a total laughingstock. He didn't attack the business, he destroyed its reputation, and the business just crumbled.
Barnum's move is just a masterclass in this law. So what are the takeaways for you? First, you've got to build a solid reputation around one key quality. Maybe it's being reliable, maybe it's being incredibly creative. Whatever it is, own it. Second, you have to be paranoid, always watching for potential attacks on that reputation. And third, and this is the genius part, you learn that you can take down your enemies without ever throwing a direct punch. You just poke a hole in their reputation and let the court of public opinion do the dirty work for you.
All right, now we're heading into some darker territory. So you've secured your spot, you've built a solid reputation. But what happens when someone comes at you directly, when you have a real enemy? Law 15 is brutal, and it is totally uncompromising. Crush your enemy totally. Let's talk about Empress Wu Zetian. She's the only woman to ever rule China as emperor, and she clawed her way to the top in a world where everyone was a potential threat. Her method? It was simple, and it was brutal. Anytime a rival popped up, she didn't just defeat them, she eliminated them completely. See, she knew that a wounded enemy doesn't just go away, they heal and they come back for revenge. She understood that leaving even one tiny ember glowing could spark a fire that would burn her entire empire down. And the proof? Her 40-year reign. It's terrifying, but it shows how effective her strategy was.
Yeah, the lessons here are pretty stark, aren't they? What Greene is really saying is that you lose more by stopping halfway than you do by going all the way. When you're forced to deal with an enemy, you can't leave them any hope. You can't give them any room to breathe. In this ruthless game of power, your very survival depends on it.
And that brings us to our final law, which is maybe the most advanced, the most sophisticated stage of power. You've learned how to defend yourself, how to build your base, how to deal with conflict. Now you have to master the art of adaptability. Law 48, assume formlessness. Just think about the ancient world for a second. You had two major powers, right? You had Sparta, this rigid, disciplined, unstoppable war machine. And then you had Athens, this chaotic, creative, fluid democracy. Now, Sparta's rigid tactics, they actually won the war. But they couldn't adapt to ruling. Their whole system was too brittle and it just cracked under the pressure. Athens, on the other hand, with all its messiness and creativity, it endured. Its influence is still all around us today. And why? Because what is fluid will always, always outlast what is brittle.
So what's the lesson here? It's that the highest form of power is to have no predictable form at all. The second you become predictable, you become a target. You have to be like water, adapt to whatever container you're in, flow around any obstacle, but never lose your force. And when you go on the offensive, you don't attack your enemy's strengths, you attack the parts of their system that are the most rigid, because that is always their biggest weakness.
So there you have it. We've just walked through 4 critical stages of mastering the game of power. Let's do a quick recap of the core rules we've talked about.
Number 1, secure your spot by never outshining the master. Number 2, build your base by guarding your reputation with your life. Number 3, when you have to fight, crush your enemy totally so they can never come back. And number 4, achieve true mastery by assuming formlessness, being as adaptable and unstoppable as water.
At the end of the day, what Robert Greene is really telling us is that power is a social game. It's not about being good or evil. It's about understanding what truly motivates people, the things they don't say out loud. If you ignore these rules, you're just a pawn on the board, being pushed around by forces you can't even see. But if you understand them, that's when you get to become a player.
Hey, if you found this breakdown of the game of power useful, do me a favor and help other people learn the rules by hitting that like button and sharing it around. And of course, to make sure you catch our next deep dive into the huge ideas that shape our world, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching.